It's the Harris Football Podcast with your host, Christopher Harris.
Welcome! Hey, everybody. Welcome in. My name is Chris, and this show is not a giant bird that you can eat. Hi there, possums. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope you're doing well. I'm happy to be talking with you today. Let's have some fun. I want to remind you again, this is your final free side show of the week. The Yacht Club will still have a podcast on Wednesday. That show will feature Andy Behrens, and it will also have Jake Trowbridge for some DFS DraftKings stuff, plus I'm sure an update on how Finger League is going, the new sensation that's sweeping not just the nation, but the world. And then no show Thursday, no show Friday, as it will be Thanksgiving here in the U.S., but there is plenty to get to today, and that begins with the Monday night game, the Panthers against the 49ers. And remember how on Monday's show I previewed this game and I said, well, here's their chance. It's the first time the Panthers have had a chance to announce that they're legit for like a decade. Let's see if they can do it. And folks, pretty clearly they could not do it. That was one of the true slogs of the NFL season last night, with Carolina unable to take advantage of Brock Purdy's largesse. It was real bad. The posterior horseshoe fell out, and Brock Purdy threw 3 interceptions in the first half, 2 of them in his own territory, and the Panthers wound up scoring 3 points total as a result. You know my line on Purdy. He's crazy. His instinct is always to make the aggressive play despite not having the big arm, the arm that writes checks that the something else cannot cash. And no matter what he said running to halftime, Kyle Shanahan pretty clearly put the muzzle on Purdy for the second half. Essentially nothing aggressive after halftime, just grinding long drives and letting Christian McCaffrey rack up 31 touches. There were absolutely moments where you felt like a competent opponent could have made the 49ers pay, but last night the Panthers were absolutely not that competent opponent. San Francisco started with a 9-minute drive to open the game. The first 5 plays to McCaffrey. He had 9 touches on that drive total. In the red zone, Jawan Jennings broke a tackle for a touchdown. The first play of the second drive, Purdy followed his heart and on play action threw one deep behind Jennings for an interception. Carolina is immediately in the red zone. Bryce Young scrambles for a 1st and goal inside the 5, and then next play, just really inexcusable all around, 1st and goal from whatever the 4, and you go play action and run this long gestating play with the rookie tight end dragging across the back of the end zone, too cute by half, and the quarterback has all the permission in the world to see that the defense has not bitten and just throw it away, and instead Young throws it directly to a Niner defender in the end zone. So then the Niners go down the field with dribs and drabs, but they get in close, and Purdy wants to remind us that Ricky Pearsall exists, and so he tries to hit him in the end zone. Another deep pass, underthrown, and another good play by a Panther defensive back, a pick in the end zone. The next time San Francisco had it, McCaffrey fumbled. 2 Carolina defenders are standing around it and somehow can't recover it. But don't worry, because 2 plays after that, Purdy was picked for a 3rd time. This one, I'll just trust Troy Aikman that is less on Purdy and more on the play design that doesn't have a receiver occupying the corner on the opposite side of the field. But whatever, this game maybe had a chance to be entertaining. It certainly died with that 3rd interception, because unless the Panthers were going to be able to force the issue on offense, Shanny Jr. was just not going to allow any more downfield throws, and there weren't any. And in the 3rd quarter, San Francisco launched a 10-minute drive that was stimulating as watching a dog yawn. 10 minutes, CMC runs it in from 12 yards out. Ricky Pearsall does 2 catches for 6 yards. We know a touchdown was out there for Pearsall, and maybe if he had scored it, if the throw had been better, we'd be ready to think about him differently, but I just don't think we do that, I can't watch Pearsall run and say, oh, there's a hitch in his giddy-up. He looks fine. I don't know. It was a dreadful game, but we left Pearsall on benches for this week, and I certainly did not see a convincing enough argument to think about using him next week either. You don't have to decide about Week 16 right now. You're just going to decide about this week. Don't use him. The 49ers are going to have a tougher defense to go against in Cleveland. We'll talk about the Browns later in the show. I find it pretty unlikely that Cleveland is going to muster that much more of a challenge on offense than Carolina did, so I'm prepared for another sleepy 49er offensive attack in that game as well. Carolina, after that third interception, that was the only other chance to make this a fun game. They were down 7-0, and they got into the red zone. Rico Dowdle gets them down to the 10 with a couple of good runs. Then Young bootlegs on first down. I guess nobody's open. He runs out of bounds. Then he throws a 0-yard quick screen to Jalen Coker that gains 5. And then on third down, they set up a screen for Chuba Hubbard, except for the part where usually when you set up a screen, there are blockers. There were no blockers. There were 2 tacklers. And Chuba loses 3 yards, and they kick a field goal. Carolina had 3 first downs in the first half. First drive for them of the second half, they hit a good screen to Dowdle. And I thought, okay, you're set up for a nice gain. And my note here says, imagine if Rico Dowdle was fast, because he's not that fast by NFL running back standards, and instead of blazing past a defender who's pursuing him from the side, Dowdle pauses as though he's going to do some great move, and then he doesn't. And by the time he hits the gas again, the guy is shoving him out of bounds for a 12-yard gain on 2nd and 18. And on third down, they throw it to Teteroa McMillan, has one of 2 utterly rancid drops in this game. Then it's 17-3, and the Panthers finally go on a long drive. Hubbard is the running back for most of it, and we get to play this song. So tense, I worried this rookie was just another savior McMillan didn't get to showcase much of what I've liked about him this year. He played bad on Monday night. I swear he hasn't been bad, but at least on this one play, the Panthers run kind of a fake screen, and a safety bites on it, so McMillan gets one-on-one against a corner and goes to the post. He gets behind the defender, and the throw was perfect for Carolina's only touchdown. And then, the gang in the Yacht Club Discord, we were doing a watch-along. I was there. We were all over this. The Panthers kicked the extra point that makes it 17-10, but it's a penalty on the 49ers. So what do NFL teams do now? Almost without fail, take the kick off the board and go for 2. It's stupid. It's one more case where coaches allow the spreadsheet to do the work for them. Are there some cases where it makes sense to do that, where your offense is really humming and you trust your ability to make 1 yard in one play? Sure. Did it feel like the Panthers were that team last night? If you were watching it, I think you're going to almost certainly say no. At that point, they had like 130 scrimmage yards. Take the point. But no, they went for 2, didn't get it. 17-9, and okay, it doesn't matter. Carolina was probably never going to score again. That wasn't what decided the game. I just find it annoying. Anyway, the bloom is off the Panthers after last week. Obviously, Week 11 will turn out to be the exception, and when Dowdle isn't randomly bursting for 180 yards or whatever, it's not a very fun offense. Dowdle himself definitely has cooled way down. The snap count in the Panthers backfield last night was 28 Dowdle, 15 Hubbard. Nothing really worked, so I couldn't swear that we don't start going back to the way it was and start splitting the workload more evenly. I still really like McMillan. I think I would mostly be starting Teteroa McMillan every week. I think Dowdle probably for another week we're going to start him too, but I won't be shocked if I don't feel that way in a couple more weeks. And otherwise, certainly no reason to chase because, already you saw what it looked like last night. And in Week 13, the Panthers get the Rams.
Today's kickoff.
Okay, on today's show, let's talk about the 4 remaining games from Sunday, which I have now watched. Some of them were fun. Some of them did not live up to the time that I spent doing them. I mentioned in the watch along last night that after watching the final 2 of these games, I decided to do 30 minutes less at the gym just to practice a little self-care. We will discuss Steelers-Bears, Jags-Cardinals, that overtime game, and then also Jets-Ravens, Browns-Raiders. And then, fortunately, it will be time to start thinking about Week 13. To help me with that, Scott Fish from Fantasy Cares will join. It'll be pretty darn fun, and I thank you again so much for listening today. We are sponsored by Blue Land. They make cleaning supplies that I have switched to here aboard the yacht, 100% microplastic free, and trying to unattach our reliance on throwing away plastic bottles. From cleaning sprays to toilet bowl cleaner to hand soaps to dishwasher and laundry tablets, Blue Land's formulas are 100% microplastic free, made with certified clean ingredients, free from chlorine, bleach, and harsh chemicals, so they're safe to use around your family. For me, the magic is you don't have to throw away the bottle. You get one bottle from Blue Land, and then they send you refills in tablet form. You add water, boom. You just didn't throw away a bottle. I've been on Blue Land for like 2 years now, have not thrown away a bottle since. No microplastics in my food or my laundry, and I feel like I'm helping the environment. To stock up on sustainable cleaning products for yourself or to give a beautiful sustainable gift to your friends and family this holiday season, go to blueland.com/Harris and save up to 30% during Blue Land's holiday sale. Don't wait, they only do this once a year. That's 30% off during Blue Land's holiday sale by going to blueland.com/Harris. blueland.com/Harris.
Game Film Rewind.
Back to the Sunday action. Let's talk Steelers-Bears, a bunch of scoring. I do not think you would have watched it and say that either offense was amazing. What was amazing, though, were the last names of the two starting running backs here. Swift versus Gainwell. Come on! Only one of those guys took their name seriously. It unfortunately was not DeAndre Swift.
Scorelessness is hopelessness, and hopelessness will soon regress and regress into stat progress, but the stats were empty, just like me.
Remember when he wore number 0 in Philly? Wasn't that great? An absolutely brutal result if you were hoping for a good game from DeAndre Swift, to the point where down the stretch, when the Bears were trying to run out the clock, you might recall last week against the Vikings, Swift was the dude who did it. He got them to kill the clock. He got them going. He got them in field goal range. They would blow the field goal, but it still felt like it said something about how the Bears view their backfield. In this game, nope. It was Kyle Monangai who was on the field, and rightly so. Swift never got anything going. I'm not sure about his lost fumble. Felt like he was probably down, and they wrenched it away from him at the bottom of the pile, but there were no camera angles to confirm it. But it's 9 touches, 29 scrimmage yards for Swift, and the only drive where either running back got it going, it was Monangai. Late third quarter, getting chunks. He got them inside the 10. Then first play of the fourth quarter, he was out and Swift was in, and they tried to get Swift the touchdown. He ran like outside and then tried cutting it up inside. He was stopped. Very next play, Monangai was back in again, and he scored the rushing touchdown. The snap count for those Bears running backs was 34 Monangai and 26 Swift. In other words, basically even until the drive where they were trying to kill the clock. But boy, it was a lot of DeAndre Swift on third down and a lot of Monangai on first down. On first downs, the snap count was 18-8 in favor of Monangai. Didn't feel this way exactly 1 week ago. That's how much your perception can really get warped by a single game. But I don't know. Now it feels super wise to temper our expectations for Swift heading into his revenge game, Black Friday tilt against those Eagles. As for the referendum known as Caleb Williams, stop me if you've heard this before. His highs were good, mostly related to his mobility, and his lows pretty bad, going 10 for 21 in the first half, missing multiple open receivers because there are simply times he can't hit the broadside of a barn, and it's hard to know why. He absolutely should have thrown a pick with 30 seconds left in the half, and Kyle Duggar dropped it because Kyle Duggar mostly can't catch. But Instead, the Bears kick a field goal, and they're only down 21-17 at the half. To start the second half, they tried to get Rome Odunze going with back-to-back crossers, one of which was thrown 4 feet behind Odunze, but he wrangled it anyway. And then when it's 3rd and 8, and you've got a chance to get a first down and really close it out, Williams gets a delay of game. That's to say nothing of early in the game from his own end zone, holding it too long and allowing a strip sack fumble for a Pittsburgh touchdown. I mean, the Bears are 9-3. They are headed for the playoffs. Someone throwing heavy criticism Caleb Williams' way is probably not being fair. He's got 3 touchdown passes in this game alone. 2 of them to DJ Moore.
He's DJ Moore, the little badass. He's more than that if you have to ask. DJ Moore, the little badass.
As I say, the good throws are good. The good decisions are good. The Bears clearly have been lucky how infrequently the bad stuff has been fatal. You're starting Odunze. I personally don't think you're all that excited to start DJ Moore. He's obviously had some pop games, but really starting any other receiver other than Odunze feels like a stretch because of the state that Caleb Williams is in, which is not terrible, but he is the referendum. The Steelers, this offense had the tiniest margin for error even when Aaron Rodgers was playing, and he didn't play in this game, so we had Mason Rudolph under center. His first throw was pretty aggressive down the left sideline, and it was an insane one-handed interception by the Bears. And I don't know, maybe that spooked Rudolph or Arthur Smith or Mike Tomlin or Terry Bradshaw, but after that, the Steelers were on, as Ian Eagle said, doing play-by-play in this game, a whole lot of screen passes. Basically, the screens and stops program for Pittsburgh, where kind of didn't matter if it was 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 9, you were getting a 2-yard slant, and you were going to like it. They obviously did try to get DK Metcalf going early, short stuff to him, a carry by him. I mean, it's still only 34 scrimmage yards, but he does score what technically counts as a rushing touchdown inside the Bears' 10. It was actually a screen that was just a slightly backwards pass. So it's good for you if you had Metcalf for him to pay off, but I mean, that just can't be the offense if you're going to rely on Metcalf week to week. Even Aaron Rodgers is more aggressive than what Mason Rudolph did in this game. Between the two of them, the running backs, Jaylen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell, get 28 carries. Gainwell added 6 dump-off screens as well, so 34 running back touches. I mean, that's more than Christian McCaffrey by himself. Gainwell actually started and got the first carry of this game, but then Warren was immediately in. Felt for sure like they were protecting Warren and his bad ankle a little bit, especially early in the game. In the end, the 2 running backs basically split the snap count. Gainwell was a hard luck loser in the touchdown department. After earlier in the game, the Steelers had been stuffed on a tush push. They lined up to do it again, but actually handed it sideways to Gainwell, and he rambled 50 yards, initially ruled in the end zone, but then ruled out at the 1. Then Warren came in to clean it up, which we will definitely take, but we should realize it was a little bit lucky. I mean, Rudolph did his best, but his best consists of ultra-conservative play. Caleb Williams and the Bears gave the Steelers multiple chances, 2 drives to go tie or win it, and both times Pittsburgh proved that they could not win it doing nothing but 2-yard passes. In Week 13, they host the Bills. In Arizona, the Jags win another overtime game. They're 7-4. They tried pretty hard to blow this game against an inferior opponent, and to their credit, the Jags didn't blow it. They're 1 game back of Indianapolis. They still have 2 games left against the Colts, so who knows? The thing that snapped into focus even further watching this film right after watching the Bears game is how similar those teams are. The Jags and the Bears, they keep winning, and I don't have that much confidence in them, but also how similar the quarterbacks are, how each of them fit the mold of you can absolutely find plays in any given week to give you hope, but you just cannot seem to get rid of the weird throws, the bad reads, the mistakes that you just shouldn't have to put up with. That's far more understandable for Caleb Williams halfway through his 2nd year than Trevor Lawrence halfway through his 5th. Lawrence keeps both teams in a game, as they say, but he makes one big throw to Brenton Strange in overtime to set up a field goal, and that was enough. 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, truly carrying on the tradition of Blake Bortles in that same uniform. Felt like it was going to be a big Travis Etienne game at the beginning. First Jags drive, Etienne up the right side, 50 yards to inside the Arizona 15. Next play is a screen to Travis Steve, and he makes a guy miss and barrels in for the touchdown that makes it 7-0. And Etienne would get 15 more touches the rest of the day and do 54 more pretty quiet scrimmage yards. Nothing particularly close to scoring. Bashal Tutin, he only played 13 offensive snaps in this game, so we were right back to an obvious hierarchy. Could that have had something to do with Tutin's ankle that had him questionable all week? Maybe. Could also have something to do with the fact that Etienne's honestly been really good pretty much all year and isn't so much a dude that you need to replace. Unless, of course, as Cousin Josh said last week, you wind up letting him walk in 2026. Lawrence essentially didn't throw to any of his wideouts in the first half. They were losing 14-10 at the break. They came out hitting Parker Washington to start the third. Strange had a sideline catch down to the red zone. First play, they immediately look for Jacoby Myers on a slant, but the ball's deflected at the line and intercepted. Parker Washington has a huge punt return, and then he gets an end zone target, but it's knocked away, whereupon Myers does get his first touchdown after all on a great play by Lawrence with the blitz in his face. It was great. He can look so good, but he would spend the rest of the second half throwing it to the other guys, staring down his receivers. But then, on a gotta-have-it drive, Myers has a big catch with 6 minutes to go. That leads to a red zone touchdown for Parker Washington to take the lead. I'm still not convinced for sure that Brian Thomas is coming back imminently. Every week it gets easier to believe that he'll be back, but a high ankle sprain is real. There is a formlessness to this passing offense. Maybe Thomas's return would make it all make sense, or maybe it would put it all in the blender that much more. Maybe the best way to play it, if you're still out there looking for your Tunyon, is actually with Brenton Strange. His first game since week 5, he returns from IR. I thought he looked really good, did a fair imitation of Trey McBride going in the other direction, does 5 for 93 with 2 downfield balls. I think I'm going to talk about him in waivers later in the show. For the Cardinals, another game they're in, another close loss, and another one where it's definitely Kyler Murray's fault. One thing we can't say about this effort that we could about the last 2, they were not getting blown out. And the comeback drive that sent it to overtime was stirring. It was good. Jacoby Brissett, he gives you everything he's got, including taking a huge hit on the sidelines after a scramble and having to leave for part of a series. But it's another 50-attempt game for him. The Jags blitzed like crazy. Brissett took 1 million hits, got sacked 6 times. He was tough. He was gutsy. And when he can hit his back foot, and it's especially when it's a zone defense, and he can see it and get rid of it right away, he is good. He is clearly a starting quality player, but the Jags started sending pressure and playing man on the back end, and Brissett's utter lack of mobility was the thing that started to limit it all. But give Brissett credit, he surely slung it enough to make Michael Wilson and Trey McBride good. Man, Wilson had a catch at the very end of regulation where he forgot that Arizona had no timeouts and got up and spun the ball, wasting precious seconds so that the Cardinals couldn't spike it, and they would wind up just kicking the tying field goal. That was pretty dumb. But, this is the Cardinal offense. It's what it's going to be. They're playing out the string, but they're going to be throwing. We'll see if Marvin Harrison can come back week 13 against Tampa, but you can count on a bunch of throwing. The running backs, not going to count too much on them. One time they were on the goal line, it was Bam Knight for 2 attempts, and he scored on the second. Michael Carter played about as many snaps as Knight did. Knight also possibly injured himself in overtime. We'll have to check in on that. Probably best not to chase any of those guys too hard. Maybe the equation gets changed if and when Trey Benson can return. We are sponsored again by Aura Frames. Just heard from Peter on Blue Sky, who heard about Aura Frames here on the pod, who got an Aura frame for his mom-in-law, and that's awesome. It really is an incredibly clever use of technology that makes for an incredible gift. The Carver matte frame from Aura, it's a digital picture frame. It cycles through unlimited photos and videos. You can preload it with whatever pictures or videos that you want, so it'll arrive with those already displaying. And then even cooler, you can share new photos and videos straight from your phone all year long. Wonderful for the parents, wonderful for the kids. I've given an Aura frame to my folks. They really love it. Just a great way for everyone to feel a little closer. You can't wrap togetherness, but you can frame it. And for a limited time, you can visit auraframes.com and get $45 off their best-selling Carver matte frame, named number 1 by Wirecutter, by checking out with the promo code Harris. That's AURA frames.com, promo code Harris. This is their Black Friday, Cyber Monday sale. Best deal of the year, $45 off. So check it out. Terms and conditions apply. auraframes.com. Use that code Harris.
What does the film say?
Well, we have 2 more games from Week 12 to get to, and then we can forget about them. We can start looking ahead to Week 13. The Jets go to Baltimore. They change quarterbacks to someone who seems less afraid to throw, and they lose, which you'd expect, but definitely a more pro-style looking attack. Tyrod Taylor's the quarterback. You'll see some receivers post some numbers in the box score. You know, it was legit. It wasn't a blowout, especially John Mechie doing 6 for 65. In this point in the season, it's really hard for me to chase Jets receivers and have my fantasy team's life in the balance. Taylor should have thrown an interception on his very first throw. The defensive back dropped it. And then to balance karma, maybe, Taylor did throw an interception on a meaningless bomb down 13 with under a minute to go. In between, he was Tyrod Taylor. He kept it fairly conservative. Yes, the second drive, there was a 3rd and long completion to A.D. Mitchell for 17 yards, but that drive ended with a brutal call, 3rd and 7, a draw to Isaiah Davis for no yards. Breece Hall is the only story on that offense that we really super care about. Obviously, he was used a ton in the scoreless first quarter. They're going to just give him the ball a lot, which we like. Short gains, not all that much room to run, hoping to wear down the defense. Second quarter, Hall gets loose on a screen. I think he injured Kyle Hamilton, smashing into him, and Hamilton would return, but later in the game would leave. We'll see if he can play on Thursday. That drive led to the Mechie touchdown. I'll admit, for sure, Taylor gives everything a little more life. Definitely he does, than Justin Fields. But we also have to be honest with ourselves and say, they were still only at 7 scoreboard points entering the fourth quarter. Breece Hall in the fourth quarter, trailing by 10, has an amazing 40-yard run after a screen where he spins past one guy and then outruns 3 other guys, and they're down into the red zone. And then after another Hall screen, they give him a carry. It's a nice run, and he's approaching the 5-yard line. And then he's wrapped up, and he's trying to hold on tight as best he can, but he is not able to. A Ravens defender comes in and punches the ball loose for a fumble, and that ended the competitive portion of the game. But over 100 scrimmage yards, you'll take that every single day of the week for Breece Hall. In Week 13, the Jets face the Falcons. For the Ravens, getting booed on home turf after the first half, I don't know. I didn't really even make that many notes for most of that first half. They were losing 7-3 at halftime. They got their field goal after a big Zay Flowers gain and then a Flowers screen where he makes a tackler miss. But Baltimore had 72 total yards of offense in the first half. And maybe Lamar Jackson looked like he might have been holding back a little bit, but I think they certainly got chewed out at halftime, and they put a drive together right at the beginning of the third quarter. They get pass interference on a deep throw to Mark Andrews. In the red zone, Derrick Henry gets a carry, and then Keaton Mitchell comes in and gets 2. but then Henry comes in and gets 2 more and scores on the second. That made it 10-7. Late third quarter, they take a shot to Flowers. That would have been a touchdown, but the defender knows he's beaten and drags him down. So the 2 big plays that led to scoring in this game were on defensive interference, and they both were definitely pass interference. But that shows you, A, what kind of excitement this game had, and then B, also, the numbers are going to look worse because nobody gets those yards. So they were much better in the second half, no question. Henry converted the second goal line chance as well. There was a chance for Henry to score a third touchdown in Basura time, but the Jets held up and made them kick a field goal. I'll admit, I'm not trying to say this is all good. This is a second consecutive going through the motions type of game for the Ravens offense, going up against the Browns and the Jets. And there's a lot of speculation out there about whether Lamar simply isn't healthy enough to truly let loose. I mean, we're all going to get to see it together on Thursday night. I can't see any way you're sitting Lamar Jackson for that game. I'll reconvene with you next week, and if we still feel the same way, maybe we'll start considering it. I thought watching this game, there were times in the second half where it felt like Lamar Jackson was pissed and did scramble at full speed at 100%. I'll admit those moments were fleeting. It became pretty clear that they were going to win that game in the second half. It's an open question. I think in this game against the Bengals on Thursday night, Joe Burrow being back, Jamar Chase being back, probably no T. Higgins, but I would say probably the Bengals will be able to push the Ravens offense by pushing their defense more than these last 2 opponents have, and then we'll really get to see whether this Ravens offense is actually this limited. And then lastly, the battle of 2 and 8. And I got this one wrong on the show with Josh on Friday. I figured the Raiders would show some pride playing against Syracuse. And I am touching my fictional earpiece and being told that it was actually the Cleveland Browns, and they just looked like Syracuse in those stupid white helmets. But anyway, yeah, I figured Shedeur Sanders' limitations would be too much for the Browns to overcome. Quite the opposite. The Browns figured a way to get a big punt return to the red zone that set up Quinshon Judkins' first Wildcat touchdown run. Then Sanders made his only play of the day, eluding the blitz, rolling right, throwing a deep one to Isaiah Bond, who had gotten behind the defense but got tackled at the 2, which set up Judkins' second Wildcat touchdown. And the Browns from that point on probably could have just let the Raiders keep the ball the entire rest of the day. No need for Cleveland to field a punt or even play offense. That's how impossible Geno Smith and the Vegas offensive line made absolutely everything look. Sanders even throws an interception directly to a linebacker in the second quarter that gives up a field goal. Sure, I mean, they probably would have been better off had they just said, yeah, you know what, we'll just forego our offensive possessions. The Cleveland pass rush was dominant. Myles Garrett and the gang, 10 sacks. Much of that, obviously, is about a bad Raider offensive line, but also you can point to half of them and say, Geno Smith has just got to get rid of the ball. Our buddy Ross Tucker was doing this game. He was trying to be nice when Geno had done a rare good thing in this game. And he goes, man, does he throw a beautiful ball at times? And in my notes, I was like, yup, at times. Ross also said after Sanders threw a 1-yard screen that Dylan Sampson took 66 yards to the house thanks to some horrendous tackling. The quote was, that's going to look great in the statistics for Sanders, which is why we love him. We love Ross Tucker. The great thing at this point is that I know with 0 buys in Week 13, nobody hearing the sound of my voice right now will be tempted by the various miscreant 1-week achievers on either of these 2 teams. That certainly includes Jerry Jeudy, who had a long catch late second quarter, and then instead of just running, I guess probably he has seen actual good football players hop up in the air before making a move. So in the open field, he hopped up in the air like he was super cool, and it allowed a defender to sneak up behind him and punch the ball out of his hands for a fumble. You'd certainly see a 3rd and long conversion in the third quarter by Harold Fannin that he got entirely on his own, and you can dream of better days. I think Fannin's got a chance to be really good. That chance just isn't now. And we just realize, all right, we're going to hold our noses and start Judkins, although let's make sure he's okay. He hit his head on the turf at the end of the third quarter, went to the blue tent, got checked for a concussion, but I assume he's fine for next week, given that he could return, and he did for much of the fourth quarter. And then we're starting Ashton Genty, who scored Vegas's only touchdown in borderline Basura time. Though, as with Judkins, we have to make sure he's healthy. He's supposedly battling an ankle problem and didn't play the final 3 minutes of this game. You have to keep starting Brock Bowers, even though he was stuck on 2 catches for 20 yards until 3 minutes left in the game, down multiple touchdowns. But obviously now we know where the bad offensive environments are, and these are 2 of the absolute worst. So no, don't start anybody else. Could there be a sign of life because Pete Carroll gave overrated fraud Chip Kelly the axe as his offensive coordinator? I mean, maybe, but you'd have to see it first, probably multiple times before you're going to make any real changes. There were chances for Geno. He could have hit Trey Tucker for multiple touchdowns deep. He just does not have it in him to be consistent anymore. For sure, there are a couple good throws on his film always, but so many bad plays, so many late throws, so much holding it and then getting sacked, going for it on 4th downs, and just having him stand there waiting only to get sacked for a turnover. This is really, really rough. In Week 13, the Raiders visit the Chargers, and the Browns, as I said, host the 49ers. We are sponsored today by BetterHelp. It's therapy online. I'm here to tell you, I'm living proof. It can be good to have somebody to talk to. Obviously, I get to talk to all of you, which is amazing, but having someone outside your life to listen to your specific stuff who can be objective and, you kind of have to justify how you're feeling about the events of our lives. I find it invaluable to have that person. The holidays can be really tough. I'm sure not everybody hearing my voice right now immediately needs therapy, but some of you might find it helpful given where you are in your life right now, and BetterHelp is a good place to do it. You can get matched with a therapist in just a few minutes after taking a questionnaire. You can always change therapists at no additional cost. BetterHelp has an average rating of 4.9 out of 5 for a live session based on 1.7 million client reviews. If you think it might help to have someone you can talk to who's outside your immediate circle, BetterHelp makes it easier to take that first step, and you can get 10% off your first month when you go to betterhelp.com/Harris. That's betterhelp.com/Harris. betterhelp.com/Harris.
Today's guest.
Across the country where the Vikings play, he's from Minnesota. He will tell you about a special player that nobody knows. Harris, get ready. Ooh, can't you see Scott Fish is on the pod, talking about football and giving a wad of good advice.
Well, he is from Minnesota, and that means he's living in the cold, and that means he has a cold. It is Scott Fish. You can find him all over social media. Just look him up, Scott Fish. You can, of course, find, you know about the Fish Bowl, which is wrapping up, and also Fantasy Cares, which is not Toys for Tots. That's coming. We're about to go on a big spree of shopping for kids, and that's awesome. Thanks for doing it, Scott. I know you're not feeling great.
No, yeah. Thanks for having me on. We're excited for those toy shopping trips. We got some fun campaigns going with Fantasy Cares now as well. It's a good time for Fantasy Cares.
It is. If people around the holidays, if they'd like to contribute, can they still get involved?
Oh yeah, absolutely. FantasyCares.org. You can donate, and it helps us buy these toys. We go 20 different shopping trips around the country, buy thousands upon thousands, tens of hundreds, over $100,000 worth of Toys for Tots, working for the Marines. Right now, we have a campaign that's 25 jerseys in 25 days. If you donate $25 or more to that campaign, you'll be entered into a drawing every single day in December 1st through the 25th. Drawing for a signed jersey, and that money will help us buy these toys. So, you get a little benefit out of it as well, helping us do some good out there.
Amazing. So if everybody's thinking about a way, maybe your league wants to give $25 of the prize money, that would be lovely. Check out fantasycares.org. It is a big time of year, which is, Scott's running himself ragged, but he's here with a waiver wire with us, which means that's lovely. It's just lovely for you to have you and check in with you before the holiday here. Not less lovely is this waiver wire. We've had some weeks lately that have been pretty good, but this one, in a way though, I'll say I don't hate it when there's not obvious consensus, because first of all, nobody's going to really disagree with anybody about who they might suggest that you add, because there's not definite. And then also we just probably get to more names, which is good too. As always, of course, if you're going to drop somebody, you're going to add somebody, you got to drop somebody. I screwed up the lead, but it doesn't change the fact that give them the Thursday boot, which means go to ThursdayBoots.com. It's a great time of year. It's cold, not in Los Angeles, but everywhere else, pretty cold. Get a pair of boots. I heard from someone on Twitter, on actual literal x.com the other day, saying that they checked out a pair of Thursday boots and wanted to let Thursday Boots know where they heard about them. And they are fantastic boots, ThursdayBoots.com. So again, the rules, everybody who listens to the show knows, it's one players rostered in 1/3 of Yahoo leagues or fewer. Don't crash your car. I have put these names in the show notes, so please just read the show notes. Who's your number 5 waiver ad for week 13?
I debated several people here. And if you need so if you need a 1 week fill in, this is probably just a 1 week thing. Andrei Iosivas might be worth $1. Showed up last week with Chase out. It's a short week, so T. Higgins will not be back in time to play. Maybe Gesicki gets more work, but Iosivas with Joe Burrow coming back on Thanksgiving here, I put him at number 5 as a 1 week throw him in your lineup fill in.
I put him at number 3. And I had him on the list last week too. Yeah.
Well, good on you for that last week. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it took a long way to get there. it was a lot of fallow time for Iosivas. He gets hurt in that game, so let's make sure also that he's healthy. But I think he is, because he came back in the game. He got a stinger, I think, at the end of that Patriot game. He did make a couple of plays at the very, very end that made it look more respectable than it was. But yeah, the fact that it's Burrow and not Flacco probably. He's the first receiver I would want to grab for a 1 week solution. If you're a T. Higgins owner, for example, I agree. I'm going to have 2 tight ends on this list, although one of them isn't actually a tight end.
Wow.
Okay. Number five on my list is Taysom Hill, the smiling goon, 1% rostered, because we're going to have a different Saint who'll occupy the backfield, probably higher on this list. And so all I could tell you is, commit to the bit. If there's a tight end that I already mentioned earlier in the show that will come higher on this list, but Taysom Hill doesn't play tight end, and so I'm gonna get 7 Wildcat snaps out of Taysom Hill, and some of them could be close to the goal line. And clearly, as I talked about on Monday's show against the Falcons, that didn't work. They tried and couldn't get in the end zone a million times from inside the 2-yard line. The final try being a snap over Taysom Hill's head, in which he gets. It's the only time a tight end in fantasy has been called for intentional grounding this year, I'm pretty sure. But Taysom Hill, in a deep league, commit to the bit. You can't find a tight end. I can see myself doing it. I saw it work in December last year. He was a league winner last year. It's stupid, but take advantage of the rules. Sounds like he didn't make your list, but who's number 4?
No, Taysom Hill was off my list, but my number 4 is probably the other guy you were talking about in Brenton Strange.
Right. Me
too. Just a clear-cut role. He's got history of really good games with Trevor Lawrence. Brian Thomas Jr. hasn't been good even when he's been playing, and he's still out. He just such just such a defined role, and since he's come back, he looks really good. Looked really good last week, so I had him at 4. I had a we don't do tight ends often on this show, but we've hit when we do. We hit earlier this year with Gadsden too.
Yeah. He's 13% rostered. I think the best part is like he's good. You like I said it. I just reviewed that game earlier on the show, and there were moments where I'm like, so did Trey McBride decide that he could sign on with both uniforms for each team? Is that Strange is maybe not quite that athletic because Trey McBride's quite an athlete and has unbelievable hands, but there are 2 deep balls on the sideline that Strange catches in that game where I'm like, oh, I'm pretty sure that's more of like a wide receiver kind of play than a tight end kind of play. I absolutely think he could be your Tunyon. That's what we call it when someone accidentally falls into for the Robert Tunyon season. So I'm going to start this list with 2 tight ends because it's a bad week. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, I wonder how much higher he would have been on waiver wire lists if that play where Lawrence rolled out was flush from the pocket and he hit Parker Washington in the back of the end zone. If he had gone to Strange instead there, and that stat line was like 93 yards at a score instead of 91 yards.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. All right. So we've done my 5, 4, and 3. Who's your number 3?
My number 3 is Jayden Higgins. Role increasing weekly, seems to have taken that number 2 role in that offense for the Texans. I'll be interested to see if it stays with Stroud. He did have a 7-target game with Stroud early in the year, but his snap percentages, his route participations, everything's been increasing weekly. He's got targets of 7, 7, and 9 in the last 3. Granted, once again, all Davis Mills games. But the defense keeps them in games and keeps him out there and working. So I had Jayden Higgins there.
Honorable mention for me, if I had done a top 7, he would have been number 7. So he's 22% rostered in Yahoo leagues, and I definitely understand where you're coming from. There are moments where you're like, wait a minute, that was a good catch. Why is that guy not getting more high-value targets? It doesn't help when Christian Kirk scores 2 touchdowns in a game, or it doesn't help when Jalen Knoll, unfortunately it is
a lot of mouths.
Right. It's sort of a wide receiver 2 by committee. And that can, but of that group, I would much rather chase Higgins than I would want to chase Kirk's big production in that Thursday night game. Like I'm with you there. Higgins just looks like a good play. They all look like good players, to be honest. I think Christian Kirk feels to me like some of the leg injuries have taken their toll. There was a moment in that Bills game where I was like, old Christian Kirk, it feels like would have scored on a play, and instead he got tackled. Like maybe he's not quite the burner that he used to be. Maybe it's easier for me to go, I don't really see it on film from him, and maybe let one of the young kids, kind of take over. So I don't mind it at all. Higgins at 3. Iosivas was my 2. So who's your 2?
My 2 is Chris Rodriguez, and I feel like I'm going back to this seems more like the lead back, but every time I seem to think that, he flips with cross-game merit. But those matchups at the end of the year are really decent for that. And with Jayden Daniels eventually coming back here, I think the offense is just going to be more efficient, more productive, and he does get decent volume. So I put Chris Rodriguez there, in a running line. You can't get starting running backs off the waiver wire very, very easily, very often.
He's my number 1 for exactly that reason. Seems like even though we had a bunch of consternation about the names, we kind of wound up with a very similar group of names because I know who your 1's going to be. Yeah, yep. Rodriguez has been on this list for me a bunch of weeks in a row, never very high. I wouldn't say because he's the 1 this week, that means, my God, I'm so convinced Chris Rodriguez, super fantasy stud. It's just about a week not being all that great for waivers. But he, like I said, 17% rostered, and you can't find a lot of starting running backs off the waiver wire. You just can't. Yep. And JCM for me has never impressed all year. I don't know that I think he's all that good. I don't think he makes too many people miss. I think he tries to bounce when he doesn't need to. Maybe he's going to wind up being a good player, but I think the Commanders at some point decided we put too much on this kid's plate, and maybe let's take a half a step back in this busted season. Let's use this big lunk, this David Montgomery phylum kind of guy. He's not a super dynamic player, obviously, but he's a tough dude. Will definitely score from the 1 a lot of the time, like he did in Europe against Miami. So, You got to be in desperate straits to be starting guys that you are grabbing off the waiver wire in advance of week 13. But if you are, Rodriguez could be the answer, or your number one could be the answer.
Yep, my number one is Devin Neal, Kamara with the MCL. He could be back for your fantasy playoffs, or his season could be over. But Neal ran a ton of routes, used him in more routes than they seemingly were with Kamara. Once Kamara was out, he did play, I believe, nearly 90% of the snaps after Kamara went out, but that might be a depth chart issue because Estime was inactive and he'll probably be active this week. We saw Taysom Hill even taking some legit lined up at running back snaps, not even direct. I mean, took some direct snaps, but he had some running back snaps, which was kind of interesting, with that injury. It's not guaranteed volume. It's a poor offense. But we talked about Devin Neal a couple weeks ago. Get these backups in case of an injury or whatever. It's a great matchup against Miami. We're not sure what's going to happen, but right now it looks like he's the guy in line for the lead role there.
He's my number two for all the reasons that you said. It's funny, I'm watching that tape and I'm like, oh, Kamara's back in, because with Kamara, I always look for the adhesive elbow patches, because he wears those long forearm patches that go from from your upper arm to your lower arm and cover your elbow, and it's very distinctive. And I'm always like, oh, a Saint wearing those elbow patches, that's Kamara, he's back in. And then I'm like, no, Devin Neal just wears the same patches. I wonder where he got them from. Hopefully Kamara got them in bulk. And I didn't see Neal do very much. It is kind of, he looks fine. He looks like a good player. He looks like maybe quicker than fast, but pretty quick. And I can imagine a world where he's pretty good. He's not Alvin Kamara, but the issue comes down to, like you said, sight unseen. That's why I put Rodriguez higher. It's just for 1 week in what feels like, you're right, a good matchup against Miami. I go, what if I get the rug pull and there is some other slappy backup, right, Estime or whoever else, and then Taysom Hill's siphoning off a certain number of touches. But you're right. In as soon as 1 week, we might be thinking of Devin Neal as the wide receiver 26 every week. He's got Tony Pollard's workload. Why wouldn't I just use him over Tony Pollard? That's the kind of neighborhood you'd potentially be adding, and that can save you in a flex, no question. So that's why he's my 2, and he's your 1. Honorable mentions for me: Jaleel McLaughlin. I've mentioned, I think, previously. It just feels like he's part of a better offense and probably a more conservative offense that would love to run for as long as an opponent will allow you to run. And he's clearly the 2 in Denver, but there might be some work there for him. Jayden Higgins, you mentioned. Chimere Dike, 14% rostered, had a big week, punt return touchdown. I don't want a lot of Titans. John Mechie, I thought it was good. It was good, but I don't want a lot of Jets. We're not going to worry about a streaming quarterback this week because there's nobody on bye, so check the ranks, I'd say. And then how about a streaming defense for the week?
I had Miami versus the Saints. The Saints haven't scored 20 points in about 2 months here. I thought that was a pretty good matchup. And the 49ers against the Browns and Shadur Sanders in his first start that teams will get to game plan for.
Yeah, the Miami was my 1 as well. I also said the Colts, who dropped in ownership percentage probably because of the Chiefs matchup. On the one hand, you go, CJ Stroud's back. That should fix everything. On the other hand, you go, yeah, but it's still the same offensive line. And the Colts played really well on defense against the Chiefs. And but I'm with you. I would probably pick the Dolphins if I was streaming anyone. You know what? Let's do one little bonus extra thing because there's no cousin Josh on the show this week, and it wouldn't be a week that was worth having on the show if we couldn't humiliate Josh for his point spread pick. Because I'm here to tell you, I've got it here. I believe that Josh is now 2-8 in his point spread pick this season. So if you had just let a chicken loose in a hedge maze that had 2 team logos in the maze, they'd be doing better than cousin Josh by 3 games.
You should get a new segment sounder for that, and it's called Fade Cousin Josh. So you just do the opposite of what he wants every week.
100%. But we're not going to have him on to humiliate himself because there's no Friday show. So I did text him quite early this morning, very early for me, pretty early for him, and got his pick for the week. And so, of course, this is all on DraftKings Sportsbook. If you want to use the promo code, if you get the DraftKings Sportsbook, sign up using the code Harris, you get some bonus, make one $5 bet, you get some bonus bets put into your account. But so Josh, I want to get your opinion on this one. Josh took a look at the full slate and decided he'd go Black Friday. He wants Eagles -7 over the Bears. Eagles pissed off cousin Josh against the Bears, who I think, feel like a little bit of a paper tiger or paper bears, as it were.
Yeah.
Would you trust the Eagles offense enough to get their stuff together to give 7 against Chicago?
I don't know. I have watched the Bears be behind in the fourth in many games this season and come right back storming. So I feel like this is one of the I think that's bold. I think that's bold. I feel like this is one of those that even if they are pissed off mad and get that lead, the Bears are going to do what Ben Johnson and the Bears have been doing this year, is coming back and making it close at the end. I was going to look real quick because I don't remember the Bears losing by more than one score much at all. And it looks like the only time that happened was Detroit this year, when Detroit just absolutely went off week 2. Every other game has been basically one score. I think I'm fading that.
Well, the poor man, Josh, had the Lions giving the huge number to the Giants and almost losing and having to go to overtime last week. So he is not what you call red hot, but he does his best. I was looking at DraftKings I had my favorite bet last year was the Raiders -3.5 over Shador, and that was also bad advice. I've been better this year. I'll tell you, I think I'd go Bills. I know I don't want road favorites, but -3.5 at Pittsburgh, I think I'd go Bills. I think there's a bounce back there. I know you can run on them, and I know Pittsburgh's going to try to run on them and shorten the game and stuff, but at some point, doesn't talent seek its level? Doesn't Josh Allen just do Josh Allen things? Obviously it was a disaster against Houston, but the Steelers don't have that kind of, they have a good pass rush, but it's not Houston's pass rush, and they don't have Houston's secondary. And I feel like, I don't know, I would set that line. If you told me sight unseen Bills Steelers, what the line is, I would probably say Bills 5.5, Bills 6. So the fact that it's 3.5, I probably go, I probably give those. What do you think about that one?
I think that's fine. I would agree with that. The 3.5. Yeah, I wish the hook wasn't on there.
Yeah.
Just make it a little take away that hook. But 3.5 spot. I think the Bills are going to do what the Bills do, and I know it's
All right. Every time I talk about this stuff, got to play the disclaimer.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, fees may apply in Illinois. 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. NFL Sunday ticket offer for new subscribers only and auto renews until canceled. Digital games and commercial use excluded. Restrictions apply. Additional NFL Sunday ticket terms at youtube.com/go/NFL Sunday ticket/terms. Limited time offer.
All right, Scott. Well, it was very fun to get you on. You played hurt here. You were a mensch for coming on. I know that you weren't feeling great, but if in order to say thanks to Scott, if you want to go to fantasycares.org and donate some of the league winnings, donate some of just your hard-earned cash, that's wonderful. You can enter this 25 jerseys in 25 days contest, and that's super fun. It's a wonderful cause. Scott's going to be out and about, and all the folks who help out Fantasy Cares are going to be out doing all these shopping sprees. You're going to see tons of stuff on that on your social media. It's always a wonderful feel-good story. If you'd like to be part of it, fantasycares.org. My friend, I hope you feel better soon, and I will talk to you hopefully as soon as we can.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
And thank you so much for listening. Let me also thank the 3 sponsors that made today's show possible. We had Blue Land, Aura Frames, and BetterHelp. If you're interested in anything I had to say about those sponsors, it really helps when you use the codes and URLs and all that stuff. Let them know where you heard about them. If you don't currently have the means or a need, that's perfectly wonderful. I'm happy to have you listening. But if you were interested and you can see your way through to supporting any of the sponsors, that's how this whole thing keeps going. You've all been so incredibly generous over the years in how you support the sponsors. That's why this show is still around. It's really all because of you. I thank you so much. Again, today's sponsor details are in today's show notes. All the current sponsors are at harrisfootball.com. That's going to do it for this Tuesday episode. As I said off the top, the Wednesday show for the Yacht Clubbers will be out there. Andy Behrens and I will make a show. Jake Trowbridge will make a special appearance behind the paywall. Can't imagine what kind of nonsense paywall Jake is going to get up to. And then no show Thursday, no show Friday. I will be there Sunday morning for a live stream like usual for the Yacht Clubbers. We'll talk for an hour and talk through your lineups and play some guitar and be silly for an hour, and then we'll all get back here together again on Monday and talk about Sunday's games. Until then, thanks again so much for listening. Your hat is awesome. You're awesome for wearing it. I will talk to you next time.
The Harris Football Podcast's opening theme is Under the Gun by Apex Manor. The closing theme is Say Yes by The Wellspring. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and never miss an episode.